Hey everybody, this is Paul Heumiller from Dream Guitars, and with me today from Canada is Mr. Grit Laskin. Grit, how are you today?
I'm doing fine. Thanks. A pleasure to talk to you anytime.
Lovely, yeah. I feel fortunate. We've been pals for a long time. I can't even remember when we originally met, but many moons ago, and done a number of great projects together. I've always enjoyed. I tell people how fun it is for me to work with you, because often we'll decide, okay, we're going to do a guitar next July, and I give you a little seed of some idea, and then you and I have, I think we have a lot in common, and you just tend to take my seeds and create these beautiful ideas, like the current guitars, Chaos and Calm, that we'll talk about in a minute. But I just appreciate working with you all these years. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, I agree with you. It's been a pleasure, as I said, and some of it is from what you're talking about. You've got interesting ideas of themes that to other people would think, oh my God, how would I ever capture? He's giving me a concept. What do I do with that and turn it into something visual? But no, we talk it through and we get some ideas, and it's coming from places no other customer of mine, whether an individual or a dealer, have ever come from. And it's always a pleasure, a challenge, but a fun challenge.
That's it.
It's been great.
I see one just behind you on the wall. I see the peace sign of the Give Peace a Chance guitar.
That's right. That's right. Oops, sorry. I'm trying to point backwards. That one right there. Right. Yeah. I'm in my office, and you can see my workshop through there. A couple more rooms, actually 3 more rooms farther on, but my office, and I've got posters, when I do a Luthier show or something, and I made up a poster, and what do I do with it when I bring it home? So it goes up on the wall. But you're right. That goes back, and that was when you gave me one single word. And I talk about this in the Grand Complications book when I talk about that guitar, how you just said, well, let's explore peace, do something, and and I was asking you questions. Well, where are you coming from? What's your age? What's your experience? What wars have your country been involved in, or you were against, or whatever your position might be? And thinking, how would Paul feel about this? And then we got through it, and you just said, no, I want to see what you come up with, Grit. And I'll tell you what a gift that is. That's the best word. What you provide me and other luthiers, many other luthiers who you work with and are associated with and friends with, is you're giving us opportunity challenges. It's great.
Thank you. I know it's a blast. That particular guitar, I remember, because some of you can find all these guitars on our website that you'll hear us talk about today. We keep them there so people can learn more about you and your work. But that one has Nelson Mandela on it, John Lennon on it, all these beautiful signs of a peace march. Just really came out special. Good, clean fun.
And it's all on guitars. It's not art for the wall, but the way I look at it, and you're allowing me to look at it when we do work on projects together, is yes, the guitar has to be excellent as its tool, absolutely. Or I'm like everybody else, I would say, it doesn't matter about the inlay or how beautiful the woods are or how perfect the joinery is. If it doesn't sound good and play well, it's a failure. It's not being the tool it's supposed to be. So that's number one. But then if the art on it can connect to the individual, a version of the way it's connecting to your thoughts and imagined imagery, then it's this additional layer of personal stuff, and it makes the transaction to me of getting a guitar from a hand-built guitar, whether it's through a dealer or directly with the luthier, but working with a hand-built luthier, it's such a rich, filled transaction. It's not just you go to the store and you buy this thing and you go home. Not at all. Not in the slightest. Yeah. Totally.
No, and I'm glad we're actually starting here, because one of the things I wanted people to really, if they don't know you, if they haven't met you at a show or whatever, people who know you and meet you and play your guitars, they know how wonderful they are, and as tools, and the sonically, sometimes what I'm getting at is I think sometimes people, if a guitar has a really special artistry about it, like yours do, with the inlay, sometimes people maybe don't realize how great they sound. So I'm here to tell you all that Grit's guitars really are special. Like all of us in the shop, we're still like big kids on Christmas. So when a guitar comes in, we play them and pass them around to me. I'm like, oh my God, you hear these trebles? You hear this? Look at that harmonic, and your guitars are always extremely well received and make us all smile for weeks and weeks and weeks. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for that. Okay.
Yeah. So one of your books was Guitar Maker's Canvas, and that in a nutshell, that title to me, describes a lot of what you like to do is take the chance when given to make a piece of art that is also this tool. So I think the Guitar Maker's Canvas is a lovely way to describe what you do.
And I appreciate that. Yeah, and that was the first book about all my inlay stuff. And the goal there was to begin to change people's conception of decoration on an instrument, because I don't see it as decoration. I'm not denigrating that at all. There's some stunning work still being done, complex inlay work that's more decorative. It just isn't what turns my creative crank. I see it as an art form within the medium. So I'm just taking the traditional medium, the shell and stone and engraved, et cetera, and just pushing what's done in terms of the imagery. I kind of think of it like the opposite of the fine art, the visual art world, where it in Renaissance time it went to incredible realism. That's mind-blowing, right? But then photography came along, and suddenly intense realism wasn't as necessary anymore. So artists started exploring different ways of perceiving the world they lived in, right? Mm-hmm. And we all find that interesting because it makes us feel different things. So I feel I'm the opposite. I've taken something that was representational. If there were figures, winged figures, animals or something, they're kind of cartoonish. That was very typical in inlay on instruments, on furniture, wherever inlay was done into wood. And I'm taking it into a degree of realism, as well as the other thing. I'm sorry, I'm going on here.
No,
Paul,
please,
I'm sorry.
Please.
I can blab on, believe me, right? This is
bring it.
I'm permanently attached to my own soapbox, right? Anyway, that I like to create a narrative arc whenever possible. Every once in a while, a small project or small images, it doesn't make sense. But when given the permission, which is very often, and especially with you, Paul, you give me the opportunity visually to create this arc, a story. Basically, I love telling stories. So I want the inlay to say something, to tell a story, to make the viewer feel something or perceive something, because to me, that's how I personally judge all art forms. Not if they're good or bad, or do they succeed or do they fail? Do they make me feel something? Could be a painting, it could be dance, it could be theater, it could be visual art, it could be inlay, it could be a guitar, whatever. Do I feel something, or does it leave me cold and doesn't touch me? That's right. Succeed, fail. That's how I look at it. Anyway, sorry, going on just about how I look at it, what I do on the guitars.
No, I love that. And that's, I have the chance sometimes to speak to groups of builders at different events, including some that are just getting into the industry or maybe have been in a while, but, feeling kind of stuck. And I always sort of challenge them. I like, I remind them, first of all, this is an object, an instrument that a human is holding in their arms close to their heart and body and playing and expressing themselves openly. So, I mean, there has to be some connection to the builder and the instrument. Like, there has to be some joy there, some good mojo, or else the connection doesn't work somehow too. So I think adds on to what you're saying about the artwork. Does it make you feel something? And does the guitar make a musician want to make music?
Yeah, you touched on a good point there, Paul. It is very personal. a guitar, and we can even forget about inlay and stuff like that at the moment. Just the instrument as its tool.
Yep.
I know, and you, of course, would know from being in the retail world, you deal with way more people than I ever deal with, right? And different kinds of people and different desires. No two people want exactly the same thing, whether it's the feel, the sound, how the guitar feels against their body, because we're all products of our upbringing, our physiology, our psychology on how we perceive sound. Sure. And in a way, this is an encouraging thing when new builders are starting and they think, oh God, am I ever going to make it? There's so many guitar makers out there. Will I ever make a living? And blah, blah, blah. And I say, don't worry. Okay, yes, it's a bit tough at the beginning, like any art form. It's always a bit of a struggle at the beginning. But when you get there, you will find your audience who gravitate to your guitars, the way you shape the neck, the sounds that you're delivering from the box, and they will find it. And that's why people, I'm sure they come to Dream Guitars. They may come with an idea, I've been looking at whatever brand, I won't mention a name. Of course, they'd be coming looking for a Laskin. I know that, right? Everyone. Everyone comes looking for Laskin. But then, see a whole bunch of other amazing instruments. And they try them until they land on the one that their entire body is saying, oh, yes, listen to that. Oh, that feels so good.
Yeah. So I often have people, I often have people who don't understand the guitar world, and they might see just like sort of the prices or like they, a quick glimpse into our world, and they go, "Wow, who would spend $20,000 on a guitar or $50,000 on a guitar or $100,000?" And I remind them that the truth is I've had like grown men cry in my shop. They play a guitar and they've been playing 20, 30 years, and they play a guitar and that finally like, speaks to them in such a way. I've had many people that just well up and just like, oh my God, like I never thought a guitar could do this, and there you go. So I've seen it so many times.
Wow. Cherish those memories. Boy, that's powerful. And I've often said how lucky we are, the builders, to be able to work with raw natural materials, pieces of trees, and manipulate them in a way that affects human emotions.
Exactly.
And what a joy that is, really. My God, I feel so lucky, honest to God. I mean, I've been doing this since 1971. And what the hell year are we in now? Don't even tell me.
25.
It's been a long time, right? 54 years. And I still have those satisfactions and joys and tactile pleasures. I mean, the inlay work, and you're working with this gorgeous piece of rare wood and all this stuff, which is other pleasures. But then you're one chisel slice and your miter joint is perfect. Do you know how that makes your whole day? Just a little thing like that still can make it a whole day, right? But you didn't have to slave over this thing to get it perfect in one shot. Every once in a while that happens.
Well, that's a perfect segue to something else I wanted to chat about with us. So I know you started in 71. You worked with Jean Larrivée. And how many years were you with Larrivée?
2 years. From basically the summer of 71 to the summer of 73. And for that time, it was mostly just he and I. A guy named Sergei de Young, who you know about, of course.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And Serge, as we call him, he was there for the first few months, but then he took off to work with another experimental classical builder elsewhere in the province. And then in the last 6 months, Dave Wren came at night after his day job to work in the shop. And we had him, cutting blocks or doing something simple or sweeping up. And then when I left, opened my own shop, Dave quit his job and started working with John. But so basically for almost 2 years, I had John mostly to myself. Nobody else has had that experience. Talk about lucky. Just where I was when things happened, just a teenager when it started. And now, granted, the first year there was no pay, right? But I I gigged on the weekends and made enough money to pay for the room I was renting. I was just a teenager. I owned a bicycle. I had, no commitments, no mortgage, no car payment, no partners, So that was the chance to do it. And I didn't care. And then in the second year, John, I could use some money. I got to get some groceries. I got to pay rent on my room. Okay. He'd open his wallet and give me $100. But I thought, wait a minute, I'm getting off cheap. I don't have to pay for university courses. All I have to do is keep myself alive. And honest to God, I was high nonstop for 2 years. Like, that's not even healthy. Nobody's happy nonstop for 2 years, but I was just so excited falling into this new world of learning guitar making. I was starting to hang around at a music club. I was starting to pick up other instruments. I was getting into American traditional music at that moment. I'm playing banjo and dulcimer and then I got into British traditional stuff and I started playing concertina and bagpipes and mandolin, and the world around me was exploding, and I was just so high for 2 years, honest to God.
That's amazing. I can imagine. I can see you there for sure. Anyway. And talk to me. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was and it's, for you again, it's a long time ago now, but I'm always fascinated by builders that apprentice or work with someone for a few years, then come out of that and manage to somehow find their own identity. And I'm talking sonically as well as any other way. And what is it? What if you can? I'm sure you can remember back to that period, like when you learn a particular way of making a sound, and then maybe you keep a lot of it, or maybe you throw most of it out, or you're chasing something else that's in your head. Like, can you remember what your what your effort there was like, or what you were chasing in the first 5 years, say, or 10 years, or?
Yeah, interesting question, Paul. I can actually, but I understand why you think it could be a tough question, because that goes back a little.
You don't have to give away any trade secrets. No. I guess I'm asking you, like, generally, like, did you keep a lot of the bracing, or were you just experimenting like crazy?
It's interesting. It is interesting, Paul. Of course, you start with what you know. So my first guitars, the molds I made were the Lutherie shapes of the time. But then very soon I thought, no, I've got to come up with my own shapes. So I started making my own shapes, and I don't do Martin shapes or dreadnoughts or stuff. I do my own shapes, and nothing wrong with that. It's just, that's what I do. And then some of my own designs. I do remember the very first things I thought, okay, I've got to come up with a rosette that's mine, a headstock shape that's mine, and eventually I get to a body shape that's mine. So I started with those first two. Even before I made my first guitar, they had my own rosette in it, and I came up with, at least for a steel string headstock shape. Later I amended what I did with classicals and flamencos. And then not too long in, I started doing other things, playing with top thicknessing, which is not something John ever did. And I changed a bit of what he does with bracing, although only some. I still incorporate some elements of a bracing approach that John did, which is fair enough. Although I have no idea what he's doing these years. I'm talking about way back, right? When I worked with him. But then it's through the years, you never, ever stop growing and learning. I like to say, the carrot is always out there. You're reaching to grab it, and you're close, but you're never quite there, right? And that's the fun, because you can be part of developing the modern guitar, because it is not finished. It's not like the poor violin makers, who have to compete with dead people. For the most part, we don't. Right? And they have to reproduce what was done before and try and get as good as Strad and Amati and Guarneri and all those guys. And not us. The instrument is still evolving and pushing its limits, and we can be part of it. So that's another kind of exciting layer to what we do, to the profession, you know. And also, it's in general, for everybody in the biz and guitar players, it makes it a more interesting world to be in, really. On top of the fact that guitar is still the most popular instrument on the planet, everywhere. Mm-hmm. Think of any culture, South America, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, North America, you know, indigenous, wherever it is, there's some form of guitar that became part of their traditional music, never mind their modern music. In the Tiananmen Square massacre in China, there was a guitarist sitting on the sculpture, singing and playing music while the tanks were rolling in. There's guitars on the space station, you know. The Canadian guy took a backpacker Laravel up there and was playing it, you know, while he was floating around, you know. Just and you can see why, because it delivers bass and treble, the full chord, like a piano can do, but it's portable. Yes. And you can do so much different music on a guitar. It's, to me, it's just mind-blowing, really, what you can do just with a guitar.
Awesome. You're speaking my language, and you're spreading the love. You're an ambassador for the instrument.
Well, I get it, and that's honestly how I feel, really, and I'm sure you do the same.
Yeah, and I know at one time you were pretty active in the folk society and such up in Canada. Yes, am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I still play a bit. In fact, just a week and a half ago, my band did its annual little mini tour of 3 cities in Ontario. That was just awesome. Old time's sake. I've been with this band since I was 18 years old. Wow. Honest to God, they captured me and won't let me escape. Right now we're old friends and have seen everybody's kids grow up and all that stuff. Right? It's kind of neat. It's fun when you play together and you almost don't even have to say anything, and you just know how to slide in and be part of the ensemble. It's kind of neat. But yeah, I've been a folky. That's the era I grew up with. My older sister left for university, and she left behind her Pete Seeger's records and her Weavers records, and so I started listening to them. And I learned the Weavers Carnegie Hall concert, 1955, one of the iconic albums in the folk music idiom. Right? I learned every song. Pete Seeger, We Shall Overcome. And then the first record I bought with my own money was The Byrds, Fifth Dimension. Yep. And it had 2 traditional ballads on it. And I thought, I didn't understand what public domain or trad or whatever it might have said on the album itself, right? I wouldn't have known what that meant. I just thought, my God, the melodies are gorgeous. And these stories, I've never heard anything like that in a song. What on earth is this stuff, right? So I got caught up in traditional music and story songs and ballads. And it just, And you're right, to jump forward, yes, I'm the creator of National Folk Music Awards in Canada that are known as CFMA, Canadian Folk Music Awards. They're national and they travel the country. My wife helped form it. I met her through music. And she has a lot of experience that way too. And between the 2 of us, we were the last of the founders on the board. It's now on its own and doing well. We also ran an adult music camp for 35 years for a week every summer. And the record label, Borealis, Canada's first folk music label. It was my idea to start it. I brought in some other musician friends and we did a collective thing. And myself and one of those other people ran it for 25 years. Wow. For me, it was a labor of love. I would do my paperwork and contract work at night, and I'd spend 1 day in the office, but I'd still be in my shop 5 days a week building. And then we sold it to our distribution partner. Nobody got rich, but we cleared our debts. Welcome to folk music.
And clear your mind a little bit.
Well, that's it. And now I got more time in my life. But since you asked the question, yes. So I've been involved very much folk music, really love it. But at the same time, I love all music forms. I grew up in the rock and roll era and still love it when I hear a beat. When I listen to Jimi Hendrix's lead on All Along the Watchtower, holy mackerel, I still get shivers in my spine. It is so brilliant and original. for all time, not just back then when it happened. Holy mackerel. And I love Sondheim. I love musical theater. You know, classical. I don't care. If it's done with passion, I'm into it. But yes, in terms of the doing and getting involved in the community, it was the folk music world that was happening in my era that pulled me in.
Yeah. No,
I still love it.
It's wonderful. And I find a lot of, I mean, every guitar maker does not have to be an advanced player, but I think it certainly helps. Most of the guitars I played over the years that had a lot of expression and a lot of musicality, a lot of dynamics, tend to be from builders that can play quite well and really understand the tool as well. So I'm sure that's part of why I love your guitars.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I agree with you. You're right. It's not absolutely necessary. I do know some other builders who would then just take the guitars to players and say, tell me, you know, how is this doing? What do you think? What should I do? Am I okay? But you're right. I'm making myself happy. Yes. And I would often even tell people, look, you know, I'm not the Martin sound. I'm not the Taylor sound. I'm not even the Lutherie sound, right? But that's fine. Those may be the sounds that speak to you and answer what you're seeking. But it isn't what works for me personally. I am creating guitars that deliver sound that I would love to have. That's it.
Yep.
And I find my audience and people who it's not what they're after. Away you go. There's lots of options out there.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Let's circle back to that brings us right back to the instrument again. And I do want to talk a little bit about the most recent thing we've done together is a duo of guitars, not necessarily a pair. I like this idea. So over the years, I've had a lot of pairs of guitars and trios of guitars come in the shop. And I think it's a wonderful thing to do, but it can be challenging down the road if the guitars don't stay with the original owner, right? So if the guitars move on, not everybody wants to buy a pair or a trio of guitars. And I think what we did here was kind of cool. And I think we have two guitars that are directly related, but also completely stand on their own. So I think it was kind of neat how it worked out. So this was another case where I gave you very little information and ideas, but my general idea was on one hand, chaos, and on the other hand, calm. You know, our world is sort of like that these days. I think we could all appreciate and agree on that. And I really love what you did here. Would you mind just talking a little bit about how you went from that seed to chaos and calm, the imagery on these two guitars? And of course, people will be able to see on the screen here the actual images and such as we talk it through.
Sure. And I do remember we had a bit of discussion after you threw the themes out. And we talked about, you know, different approaches. And what occurred to me was using nature in a way, you know, nature when it's wild, nature when it's calm, right? And you liked that idea and said, okay, go with that. Absolutely. So that's the way I went. And with chaos, I thought, what's the most chaotic? But, you know, a twister hurricane, you know, or typhoon or whatever you want to call it, right? And then I thought, oh boy, yeah. And that's something that could work its way up. Remember, I've got this narrow canvas, right?
Yes.
This long, narrow canvas. Whether I do it horizontally or vertically, that's what I've got to work with. And what's the image that could convey what you want, but leave you can get what you need to show within the narrow confines, right?
On the fretboard, yep.
Yeah, on the fretboard, the neck, basically, and the headstock, right? So I thought a twister going up, you know, and things in it and things happening, that was the beginning of that. And I thought, well, of course. And of course, when it's down on the ground and it's starting to rip apart houses and bits are starting to fly from the ground, and then people would be running away, you know, that's another visual way of showing you that there's something wild happening here. Yeah, and then I ended up thinking, oh, yeah, and of course, the movie and images from The Wizard of Oz. So I stuck a few of them in as if they're, you know, flying around in the wind. And then at the top, I discovered a historical image that represented chaos. And I think it dated from the 15th century, or was it the 14th? And it was a wood carving And so I duplicated it because this was their symbolic. Yeah, it was just a symbol. Originally, they meant it of the chaos before the earth and the universe was formed.
Right.
Imagining a biblical kind of storyline. Obviously, that's where they were coming from. But I used that image as the symbol of chaos. And then when I went to calm, okay, I'll get to what's in the bulk of it, but at the top of the headstock, again, so these two things are in a subtle way show that the guitars are linked using the same jasper stone, this kind of beigey, creamy stone color with some grain in it. There, I duplicated the head that I found on a Greek sculpture representing the goddess of serenity.
Yeah.
And the eyes are blank, so people get the message. This was a sculpture. It's not real human here. And right at the top, so again, historical symbols of what the themes were down the neck. And then in calm, I thought, well, gee, what's the most calm thing that even I've experienced, which would be like an early morning or a sunset on a lake, and you're just sitting on the end of a dock, and a few birds are flying and chirping and, are calling. And it's just, there's a calmness there. I thought, well, let's just duplicate that and make it horizontal. So I can do the whole width. And then at one end, to balance the lump of imagery at the top of the headstock, I did where you pile stones in a way. It's not representing calmness, but it is representing a peaceful way of being in the world. The symbol of piling the stones in ways that they just, with nothing holding them together, they just stand there. So that felt like the right thing to put at the end. Again, all to just when you glance at it, before your brain is even thinking in terms of language, you're just feeling something will make you feel relaxed. That was my goal. Yeah.
It's awesome. No, I love it. I and again, getting back to these are two guitars. They're clearly related, and to me, even no matter where they are in the world, they'll always be related. And these things like the top of each headstock having the same jasper stone, but and I love it. I really love it. And the calm with all the colors. So if it might be nice for people just to tell them a little bit of you have these large sections of color. Can you just tell people briefly, like what's that made of? What is it that you do to make a big section?
Happy to, Paul. And just to responding to a comment you threw out earlier, I have no secrets. There's no issue. I'm happy to tell anybody anything of how I do something or why I'm doing it. That's not a problem. And I have reasons for that, but that's another story.
And just real quickly, and to me, that's part of why we're in the golden age of Lutherie. I think the sharing that builders have done the last 20, 30 years is I've heard some builders say that years ago it wasn't like that. I was a bit more like, here's mine and there's yours. I came up with this idea.
You can't come into my shop because you're going to see it. Oh my God,
I really think that's part of why guitars are so amazing today. So thanks for that.
Yes, Paul, and I agree with you totally. And to be frank, that attitude, that open and sharing attitude, is what has emerged out of the North American luthier community. In Europe, they struggled with older ideas. They've come around, especially with the European Guitar Builders Association, because those guys and gals came to the North American shows, saw what was happening here, and said, we need to bring that back home. And they're doing it. But it emerged out of here, so I just feel part of it. You're right. This community is very sharing. I could call any other luthier up and say, I'm having trouble with, has this ever happened to you? And they'll say, oh, yeah, you know what I did? Go get this and do this, and that should take care, and let me know how it turned. That's the way everybody is, really.
Yep.
And what a joy. But you're right. It is contributing to the development of the instrument. Anyway, I've even totally... Oh, you were asking about the materials. I was just about to say, I forgot the original question, right?
Okay.
From our points, right? The materials, it's mostly stone, but it is recon stone, short for reconstructed stone. And knife makers knew this, carvers knew this. Anybody, go to a craft show and you see handmade knives with beautiful turquoise handles and things like that. That's all recon stone. And what is done in the industry, they take the natural ore, pulverize it into a powder, and then reassemble it in blocks with a resin to hold it together. So it's still 85% the original stone, but you have now broken the molecular structure, and now you can work it with saws and files and sandpaper. It's kind of like the hardness and brittleness of bone or ivory. That's what's happened. So now we can work with it. And when Larry Seifel from, past Pearlworks, the founder of Pearlworks, no longer with us, unfortunately, he stumbled on a piece of malachite of this stuff. And I remember him showing it to me when I was down at his place in Maryland one time, and he said, Grit, this could make interesting inlay. Maybe we should try it. Why don't you see if you could find some of this? And I did. And the first time I used the recon stone was in a guitar I made for him. Okay. That was 1995.
Yeah.
So 30 years ago. Anyway.
Well, I know, just a quick side note, I know a bit about Larry through Al Petaway. They were great friends. And Al Petaway had several guitars that Larry made for him. And I used to hear all the crazy stories about Larry. And of course, Chuck the Wizard of Pearl and all these guys, the Duke of Pearl.
Yeah, what a great bunch of people, really and truly. Just good human beings. But, Larry loved him, a genius, but self-destructive, So he basically, he stayed up. He was up till 3 or 4 in the morning every day, and he basically lived on cappuccino and cigarettes, And so it was going to happen.
There's a folk song in there. There's a folk song titled "Cappuccino and Cigarettes."
A wonderful, brilliant human being, but gone too soon, way too soon. Anyway, so it's recon stone. So, and I buy slabs of it sliced off the blocks from a supplier actually in Connecticut, the biggest supplier. And I've turned so many people in the instrument world onto this stuff because suddenly our color palette quadrupled, and it's got a hardness, so you can work with it on the fretboard as opposed to using hardwoods that you stain or something to get colors. No, I want something really dense that will resist, all the playing. That's what that is.
And I remember I had the pleasure of visiting you some years ago and seeing your shop. And I remember you showing me your one special chisel that does so much of the etching. You do a lot of etching, which is a rare art. Very few people, I think, actually do a lot of that these days. And you tend to do it with one small chisel, one stroke at a time, right?
It's actually called a graver.
Okay.
Short for engraver, right? Because it's for engraving, and not other forms. So it's not scratching or etching, because that actually is something else technical that's different. Kind of like scrimshaw is very different. It is like scrimshaw is like careful scratching, shallow cuts, whereas engraving is a deeper cut and slower to go through. But you're right, a little hand tool. I don't have it near me, but that's how I do it. It takes time, but it gives me total control. And you can get the subtleties, especially when you're doing human faces and all the facial features and lines and hair. And so it takes time, but it's interesting. Often I'm doing actual human beings, whether they're famous people or family members of the client, their wife and children and grandmother or whatever. And oh my God, it better look like them or I'm going to be in trouble. And so, boy, I study photographs carefully, and I'm going, is that a crease line around the eye or is that a shadow? No, wait a minute. No, let's look. Okay, no, look at its other image. Oh, it is a crease line. Okay, now I know what to do there. And I'm staring. Okay, what is it that makes them look the way they do? What is it about the? Oh, okay, the eye. Oh, look at where their irises sit, and you see a little white of the eye underneath. Ah, that's different. Or anything. All the details that make all look the way we do. Some things are obvious and sometimes not. And if you don't get the subtle things, you can stand back and say, okay, well, that looks like a person, but is that really him or her? So I
think one of the early guitars of yours that I ever saw was the Yellow Rose with the hand holding it. I still remember My friend Peter owned that for a while, and I remember the detail and the fingerprints and just amazing stuff. I still remember that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, boy, that goes back a ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else? Any other comments on the chaos and calm that you think people should know about? We've as of this meeting of ours, chaos has found a home, and calm is still available. So anyone who needs calm in their life, we have it.
Well, I mean, they were different body sizes, and calm is what I call my small body, but it's not that small. It's not a small guitar sound. I love the sound of those little ones, and I call them little ones. And for people to get a sense of the size, think of a classical guitar. This is steel string shape, a little tighter waist, a little more rounded, but it could squeeze tightly into a classical guitar size case. That to give you a sense. And I do a 12 fret neck, so it's not as far reach, but I give a nice scooped cutaway, so you can reach all the high frets, no problem. And we made that one out of a beautiful set of Ziricote.
Yes.
Which it is one of my favorite woods these days. African blackwood, Ziricote, Wenge. We've done some Wenge projects together, and boy, did they sound good. Granted, Wenge is a plain looking wood, but boy, it vibrates beautifully, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you know, can I tell an anecdote about Ziricote?
Yeah, of course.
Sure. So the first time I ever used it, I was building a guitar for one of our national museums, believe it or not. And I just had the frame made, okay? So people understand when you've got the two sides bent and you've glued in the blocks to hold them together, it's just a frame, right? And then I do all these bevels, right? I started the bevels, and for the armrest or the rib rest bevels against the rib cage, I first glue in reinforcement on the inside frame, nice and square, so I can clamp it well, and then I carve it into a miter. You know, I grind away, right? And so I'm leaning into the frame just with my grinder, and I hear the phone ring. Now, okay, I've got to turn the machine off, go over to the phone, pick it up. There's nobody there. That was weird. Okay, happens. You go back. I start grinding the phone again. Jeez, I'm in the middle of working. Turn the machine off. Go back to the phone. There's nobody there. And I realized the vibrations from my grinder were causing the frame to vibrate and ring in my head as I was leaning in the middle of it. That's how responsive this wood is. I remember standing back and staring at this piece of wood in awe, like, holy shit, I have never had that experience, not with Brazilian, not with anything, right? So that's Ziricote.
So now you have a new way of testing the frames when you build them. You can just put that on there each time and say, okay, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I just listen to the grinder. Anyway, I've never forgotten. Literally, I'm going over to the phone. It was a ring that sounded, in my brain registered it as the phone ringing, you know?
That's hilarious. I love that. That's a great story.
So that's Ziricote, which is on the back and sides of this guitar. Yeah. And of course, it has both my bevels and the side port sound hole, which I do on all guitars once I started doing them, which just makes better guitars, people. The side port, do them.
I tell people when side ports first became a thing many years ago, I was starting to see them like everybody else, kind of new on the scene. And I remember asking you, you may not remember this conversation. I don't know how long ago it was, but I asked you, what do you think it does? And you said something really that I still remember. You said, I think it somehow changes the way the top and the back fight. You said something to that effect, like you thought there was some way that it affected how they resonate together. I don't know if you remember that, if that makes sense to you.
I don't, but I sound intelligent, so I guess I'll take it. If I have no memory of saying it, I'll take it. But interesting, because you're right. To this day, nobody knows except we know it's working and it's doing something positive, right? Yeah. I did once apply for a grant, which I never got. to make an experimental guitar with multiple holes of different sizes, all plugged, and I can remove a partial plug and a full plug and go in a studio and look at what frequencies are being affected by every different one and find the right size, the right location that would be perfect. Anyway, I didn't get the grant. But one time at a guitar show somewhere in the US, one of the physicists who works for the Bose company, B-O-S-E, right? Yep. And the people who make the speakers and all kinds of electronic stuff, and they make those incredible little CD radios, you know, that sound better than they should for this little thing. He said, if you take the top off one of those, you would see like a rat's warren of channels going back.
I've seen that. Yep.
And he said, what that is allowing is some of the lower frequency wavelengths to come nearer to completion within the containment of the amplifying device. And that's why you hear it so richly. And what he thinks is that, you know, where I put the side port at the top of the upper bout, it means it's the longest dimension of the body from that to the lower bout. And he said, what I think this is achieving is allowing some of the lower frequencies to complete their wavelengths nearer to the instrument, either within and in the immediate vicinity. And of course, we know how you perceive a musical instrument, how you perceive any sound, is the entire thing vibrating. Every piece of that guitar is vibrating, and it's moving the air molecules until it reaches you, and the air molecules bump against each other until they hit your eardrum, and that's how you perceive it. So this phenomenon happening around the guitar, your ear perceives it as a fullness that wasn't there.
Yeah.
The player, certainly from the side port, the player hears their instrument stronger, which was where I was starting. That was the first reason I did it. A customer wanted a monitor, you know, who was playing with other people and being drowned out. And they wanted to hear themselves stronger. But the side effect we landed on, you know, unintended, was that holy mackerel, out front, it's delivering a fuller sound. Is it that it's picking up some of the lower frequencies and the band that makes that sound musical is slightly enhanced? Something's happening.
Yeah. When I demo them for people in the shop, I'll have them play, and I just use my hand. I cover and uncover just so that they can understand what it's adding. And I like ones. Some have gotten quite big these days. I like them up sort of medium, mid-size, sort of like what you do, where it's not too overwhelming. But does give you more me in the monitor is the way I like to say it.
And interesting on that, I have found, you know, playing other people's guitars at guitar shows and stuff, people sometimes do elaborate things, louvers that can open and close and all that stuff. I have found that if there's something interfering with the clearly open space, it's not as effective.
Yeah.
That was my experience. So I just leave it open and reinforced. You may know the very first ones I did had a sliding door, so you could open and close it on the guitar.
Yep.
And I did that a few times, and then I thought, but once it's open, it sounds so good. You're never going to close it. So why pay me for all the time to build in these rails and line it with felt and make sure it wouldn't vibrate and all the finicky? Why pay me for that? So I just reinforce an opening, and that's what I do.
Yeah, and I'm here to tell you all the guitars I've seen that there were a number of people for a while using magnetic doors and different things, and I always found them in the case wrapped up in plastic. No one ever used them. They always left them open. Yeah. So to all you guitar makers out there thinking about doors, don't bother.
That's a lot of work, you know.
Awesome. Well, Grit, this has been an amazing. Oh, and just to finish, so Chaos guitar is African blackwood, the other wood that you said you really love.
Yes. With a bit of sapwood, although it's gone now, but they would see pictures online.
Yeah, just a stunning guitar.
Yeah,
and of course,
and that was
video. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. I was just saying, and that one was my mid-size. I just, you've already sold it, so I didn't talk about it at length. I thought.
Yeah, that's fine. And they tend to go quickly. But both of the guitars are magical, and I thank you again for allowing us to do that with you. And everybody can see those guitars plus probably 20 others, 30 others that we've sold of Grits over the years, all on our website, dreamguitars.com, with videos, lots of photographs. and our own commentary and all of that good stuff as well. So, Grit, I really enjoyed talking with you. Great catching up. I hope we get together in the same room again sometime soon.
I do hope so. I would welcome that, Paul. Anytime in your company is a pleasure. But also thank you for being supportive of me and many, many other luthiers. You really put a lot of effort into promoting and showing the guitars to the best. And it's a treat, really. Thank you.
Well, thanks. You know, to me and all, I know everybody in the shop feels the same way. We feel lucky to be able to, you know, we feel honored to be able to be with the guitars for a while and share them with the world. So it's a joy for us as well. So no problem at all.
Okay.
Well, thank you again, Grit Laskin, everybody. And I'm Paul Heumiller from Dream Guitars, and we'll do it again soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Cheers.